And is that because they've done more to overcome it because they're sort of the bigger risk?
I think there's many reasons for that, and a lot of them go way beyond business. Trust in government, trust in private sector service delivery, increasingly digital. Private sector delivery and public sector service delivery, increasingly digital. They all come together, really. I would love to live in a world where we trusted the government, we trusted the public sector, we trusted every private sector organisation. We're just not there, are we? The hacks that we've mentioned briefly, all the stories that are in the news, the increasing regulations, legislation, all posing challenges for small business owners in particular. And the question is, how do we build and maintain that trust and confidence when, as a society, perhaps trust and confidence is on the decline?
Here we go with series two of First Mistake of the Series.
Many more to come.
Many more to come, yes. Back in the room with Katie and Tom after the summer. So how was your summer, Katie?
Fantastic. I've been away a lot.
Yeah?
Ever been? Cyprus.
You probably don't remember Judith
Morocco.
Chalmers, but probably more.
I know who she is because you keep calling it me. Where else have I been?
I'm too young.
Nurka. I've only just got back from there. Spain.
Yeah. They all blend into one, you see, when you have that many, don't they? And Tom, the house.
The house, nearly is a house. Now we're getting there. We've got 2 rooms are left and then it's done. Every room's been ripped out and put back in again.
And then in about a year's time, you'll start redoing them all again because you'll change your
Absolutely
your
not.
ideas.
That's it forever now.
I do.
That's it forever.
Yeah. But you have a child that destroys yours, so that's true. That's why.
Yeah. Sometimes it works though. If he does destroy something, because I'm like, yes, I can repaint that wall now.
God, don't start me on painting. I bloody despise it.
So we're joined today by Steve Cockcroft from Cybersecurity Professionals, a client of ours. So we're going to have a chat about his business and his projects that he's got going on. Steve, hi.
Hi there.
Welcome to the Ledger Lounge.
Thank you.
Comfy, isn't it? These,
It is. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Very cosy.
Yes. I suppose I was saying to you earlier, I know very little about the wider elements of cybersecurity and what it entails for small businesses specifically. I probably should know more. And I know that we have elements of cybersecurity in our own business. But I suppose initially, where are we at with cybersecurity in the UK at the moment?
Well, there's a lot going on, as you would imagine. The world's moving towards a digital or digitally enabled business environment very, very quickly. AI, hacks are always in the news, incidents reported constantly. The UK National Cybersecurity Centre obviously pushing out lots and lots of good advice. The ICO, the UK ICO on the data protection side. But I think the challenge for small businesses in particular is, what does that mean? How do I enable good cybersecurity practices, and how can I build and maintain trust and confidence with consumers?
We've seen a lot of, I suppose the press has been full the last couple of weeks of the impact it's had on JLR.
Yeah.
And I think Marks and Spencer's also suffered a cyber attack, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it was.
And Jaguar Land Rover were out of production for over a week, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're back online, but they've certainly not sort of produced anything operationally, as far as I'm aware, for a good number of days.
They're doing about 1,000 cars a day or something.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the impact on them.
Well, there's the financial loss, and then there's the brand and reputation damage, obviously.
These are the famous ones, aren't they? When you think of small businesses, it hits close to home, doesn't it? And then you've got these big super companies almost. You read about it in the news, it doesn't seem real, but it's the ones where it's the phishing scams and things, and it's losing your passwords, being hacked, are the ones that hit people close to home, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think for a small business owner, and a lot of these micro and small businesses, they're just selling on Facebook, for example. Facebook is their business. That's the channel to market. If their account was taken over because the account wasn't secured with multi-factor authentication, for example, you've got an imposter running your business account. And that can't be a good thing.
I imagine then they could redirect all the trade to a different bank account, and
they could do whatever they wanted.
Destroy your brand, couldn't they?
Yeah.
In a couple of clicks.
Yeah, there was a story a good few months ago now, but this was a single mum, in fact, I think, making things in a kitchen, doing the best she could, and she didn't secure her Facebook account, and that got hacked, and whoever took that account over just started to badmouth her customers and rubbish her products online.
Oh, really?
And her business was done for.
Yeah.
So are small businesses seen as, are these cyber attackers as soft targets?
I think it depends on who's doing the attacking. So I always try and move it out of the digital world when I'm explaining this to clients and when I'm delivering training. If your house is wide open and somebody malicious wants to get into your house, if it's obviously wide open, they'll take that easy win and that quick opportunity. You know, if the house next door is wide open and yours is locked up, they'll walk past yours. You know, so sometimes we let them in because we haven't got the basics in place. Sometimes we just invite them in because we haven't got the essentials in place. For larger corporates, obviously, it's a bit more complex, but for small businesses, there's a number of steps that can be taken based on advice from the experts at the NCSC to secure their organisations, protect their own data, protect their customers' data. And it's not a case of if, but when some say the attack does happen, a capability to respond will stand them in good stead.
Yeah.
Learning loads now, just by sat in my head.
I know, I was thinking that.
I think that's it. I think,
Yeah, like, whoa.
I'm going to be a sponge today for cybersecurity.
I think to an extent, in our job role, we've got to have some kind of basic knowledge of
Yeah,
cybersecurity.
we've had
We
a
have
few emails in the
GDPR
past.
training. Obviously, the ACCA requires us to do things like keeping data secure and there's legislation around things like that. But like I said, at the end of the day, we're not the cybersecurity professionals, are we? So we only do what we're told and what we're advised to do.
Yeah.
We're not really the pioneers in this field, are we?
I think one easy way to look at it is we're all consumers as well as business workers and business owners. So when you go onto a website or you're on social media or you get an email from a bank or even HMRC, for example, or your pension provider, how do you know that's real? You know, we live in a world now where trust and confidence in businesses is eroding. Research from Thales recently actually indicates digital trust is on the decline across all sectors, and not one sector has got a 50% kind of approval rating.
Really?
Yeah, interestingly, banking and government services have got the highest rating, but again, that's less than 50%.
Right. And is that because they've done more to overcome it because they're sort of the bigger risk?
Yeah, I think, well, look, I think there's many reasons for that. And a lot of them go way beyond business. You know, trust in government, trust in private sector service delivery, increasingly digital. Private sector delivery and public sector service delivery, increasingly digital. They all come together, really. I would love to live in a world where we trusted the government, we trusted the public sector, we trusted every private sector organisation. We're just not there, are we? You know, and the hacks that we've mentioned briefly, all the stories that are in the news, the increasing regulations, legislation, all posing challenges for small business owners in particular. And the question is, how do we build and maintain that trust and confidence when, as a society, perhaps trust and confidence is on the decline generally? How do we overcome that with our particular business? You know, there's not a lot we can do about government trust and confidence. There's not a lot we can do around public sector trust and confidence. But for our own particular businesses, there are some simple steps that we can implement to start to show customers that actually we do care about their data. We do care about our business. You know, we're not saying we can guarantee we're not going to get attacked or we're not going to suffer an incident, but we can demonstrate we're doing the best we can. And I think that's all we can do.
And is that through sorts of accreditations and certifications, or is that through implementing internal procedures?
So there's lots of schemes out there. I won't go into the detail. There's probably over 50 that I can think of off the top of my head. Some of them are certifiable schemes and frameworks, which means you can get an independent body in to check what you're doing and they'll give you a certificate. I would just urge a bit of caution there. It's a bit like getting your car MOT'd. You know, at the time it was MOT'd, it met the requirement. As soon as you drive off the forecourt, it doesn't mean something's not going to go wrong, you know. But I think if you implement basic organisational capabilities, and they don't have to be complicated, particularly for small businesses, securing your accounts, having your antivirus software, etc., they will go a long way to defending and protecting your organisation and the data that you hold.
I think one that actually comes to mind right now, actually, I think Windows 10 is end of life, I think, isn't it, quite soon?
Yes.
And that's going to be a big one for a lot of people. I don't know the percentages, but I bet a lot of people are still on Windows 10, and a lot of people don't do their updates as it is anyway.
Yeah.
So like things like that all of a sudden they'll be exposed to different risks.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is kind of part of that, I suppose, isn't it?
If your software goes out of date, that's a vulnerability. And threats exploit vulnerabilities to attack assets. So, if the vulnerability is there, that's a weakness in your business, and that leads to problems.
Well, a lot of the time it's about passwords, isn't it? And making sure your passwords are secure, and multi-factor authentication is what I think we use in the office, isn't it? We have MFA for a lot of our products that we use.
Even little things like that.
Passwords are impossible to remember. Everybody says you've got to have a strong password and you've got to have a long and unique password for every single piece of software. It's almost impossible to maintain that. And it almost draws you to keeping similar or weak passwords.
Yeah, it does. It does. There's a lot of differing advice and guidance as well, which I think is confusing for a lot of small business owners. So strong passwords, yes, 8 characters, upper lowercase, special characters, etc. The guidance from the NCSC currently is to use 3 small words. So 3 words that nobody else knows, that link together, makes it more difficult to crack through brute force attacks, etc. And of course, technically, password managers now are creeping in.
Yeah.
And you can store, randomly generated, very secure passwords, so you don't have to write them down. They're stored electronically, and you can use those to access your accounts.
That's one that I use, but then the question, I suppose, is can you trust them?
Yeah,
it goes back to it, trust, and can you trust the password manager with your passwords?
It does it on my phone sometimes. Would you like us to
I'd save it for
make
this
a password
website,
for you? And it's well long. And I think, well, I won't remember that.
Yeah, well, that's saved electronically and used automatically, in effect. That's one way to do it. But yeah, can you trust the password manager provider?
A lot of them are free, I suppose, aren't they? So if something's free,
Yeah,
why?
Comes back to the old adage: if it's free, you're the product.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The passwords is one area, obviously. Just simple things like restricting access to your laptop. I'm a father. My children, at least historically, wanted to use my laptop to go on the internet and look at cartoons and, other things that they wanted to use. And unfortunately, the answer, without wanting to be a strict parent, was no, because I don't know what websites they're going on. I don't know what they're clicking on. A lot of the programs which run and download onto your machine. So what software is being downloaded, when they're clicking on links as children, they're not questioning any of that. So access control, passwords, multi-factor authentication, antivirus software, keeping your software up to date. And this can all be done automatically, particularly for small businesses. Encryption would be another one. Very, very simple to do, very effective. Your laptop got stolen or was lost or left behind in a hotel room, for example, that the data on that laptop is secure because the laptop's encrypted. So simple things, for a small business owner. The larger enterprises, they have an altogether different challenge with the number of users, for example, but also keeping software up to date is more challenging, particularly where older and legacy sort of software interfaces with newer software can cause problems.
You mentioned before about it's up to us as a business to get the trust of the people we're doing business with.
Yeah.
And is it? And I mentioned about accreditation and stuff like that. But is this what the term digital trust is all about?
Yeah. So there's a lot of history around cybersecurity. As you can trace it all the way back to when computing first became a thing. But computing, when it came in, fundamentally shifted how we protect information. Historically, it was easy. It was all about triple ply carbon paper. I don't know if you're old enough to remember those days.
Sadly, yes. It's usually me that puts my hand up to anything to do with
Just went
or manual process.
And we kind of locked it in very strong cupboards, didn't we, with big locks on them, and surrounded it with lots of physical security. It was a relatively straightforward affair. When computing came along, that shifted fundamentally how organisations operate. We didn't have 4 physical walls now to protect documented information. It was in data centers. Traditionally, historically, they'd be in the basement of the building, surrounded by lots of strong doors, etc. But then cloud computing came along, and that again shifted the dynamic. And the data now is not within what historically would have been our comfort zone.
It sounds like it's like a lot of control, isn't it?
Yeah,
If you've got control of where your data is at any time.
or less control.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of history on protecting information or data these days. But what's emerging now is a new, I would say, business discipline, which is getting a lot of attention, which is this concept of digital trust. How do we as business owners convince our consumers, our customers, whether you're public sector or private sector, to engage with digital services, or if we sell products online, how do we get them to trust the website or the Facebook page we're selling these products and services on? So digital trust does include cybersecurity, but it goes a little bit beyond that and includes data protection, obviously, around people's personal data. Data protection and privacy, believe it or not, all relate back to human rights and the fundamental rights and freedoms of people. We don't want to cause them any harm, our customers. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't be good for business. Transparency, particularly where the use of AI is concerned. Lots of research coming out now on how different countries, different generations, different cultures even view organisations and how they're using artificial intelligence and whether they're using it sneakily or they're being open, honest and transparent. So yeah, there's a lot to digital trust. It's getting a lot of attention. Thales, the big four consultancies, McKinsey would be another organisation doing a lot of research in this area. In fact, they're changing their staff's job titles and moving away from cybersecurity to digital trust. And I think that's an acknowledgement that cybersecurity alone doesn't garner customer trust and confidence. It needs to be coupled with, if you like, privacy, data protection, and organisational resilience.
Yeah, I suppose you can see that cyber has this Doctor Who almost element to it, doesn't it? The Cybermen, and it's probably an outdated term.
Yes, for sure. And unfortunately, just because of history and computing, etc., it was always siloed. So cybersecurity was IT's problem, but actually it's a business issue.
Yeah.
And a lot of small businesses, of course, don't have IT departments. They don't have cyber experts. And that's one of the reasons why the schemes like Cyber Essentials, the Australian Essential 8 in Australia, small business guidance from the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the US, and others around the world were released to help small businesses who haven't got the resource and the competence and the capability to get super technical. And if you run a small business with a laptop and a mobile and Microsoft 365, you don't need masses of technical, in-depth knowledge. There are some basic things you can do to help.
Mm-hmm.
Our clients aren't cyber professionals. They do what they do in their jobs and they do that well, but they don't think of it the other side like that because they've not had the training, they don't have the know-how, and this is where learning about something new or being told about something new like that is going to possibly save them.
I think there needs to be a mindset change. I teach lots of organisations, big, small, public, private sector here in the UK and abroad. I think there needs to be a mindset change because a lot of small business owners don't see themselves as digital businesses. They're making, beeswax candles and selling them online. They don't see themselves as digital businesses or owners of digital businesses, but they're online or they have a credit card reader, even on the local market in Haywood, just up the road from my house there, there's lots of little businesses. And when you go in, they're selling physical products, but you pay with a credit card. They've got a little reader on the desk. Now, if they're taking payment via a digital reader, they're a digitally enabled business. We'll have to see where the cashless society ambitions and all the rest of it go, or the way the world's moving. But there's very few businesses these days, I would suggest, that do not have a digital element to them.
Yeah, as you're saying that there, I'm trying to wrap my brain of an example that a business that doesn't.
We have MTD and clients on zero and things like that. Whether they know or don't, everyone's digital in some way.
That's true, yeah. And as MTD comes in next year.
That's anyone who's VAT registered has to, some way or another, is a digital business.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, there's the odd one. I can think off the top of my head. There's a hardware store, on the way into Bury, I think it is. It's an older chap owns the store, you can buy an individual screw
Yeah.
if you wanted to, But that's all cash only. His stock levels are in a little book. In fact, I don't even think he's got a telephone, a mobile phone. So those businesses do still exist.
Yeah.
Digital trust and cybersecurity is of no interest to businesses like that because they're not digitally enabled. But they're very few and far between. And I think, when that chap decides to retire, that will be the end of that business. All the startups in Manchester. Manchester's got a great kind of digital scene at the moment, but all the startups in Manchester, Rochdale as well, they are digital startups, and they should be thinking immediately, about how do I, as part of a strategy, just for a small organisation, how can I position my organisation? What do I need to put in place to build and maintain confidence in my business? Because any business, but as a small business in particular, if you haven't got the trust and confidence of your customers, you haven't really got a business, I would argue. It's that fundamental.
So it's digital trust essentials. It's getting that embedded into your business.
Exactly that.
And that's something I think you do in your business, isn't it? Advise businesses, provide training.
Yeah. So I train organisations. I consult as well with lots of large businesses, law firms, financial sector businesses, and what have you. And there's lots of kind of larger, more well-known schemes around ISO 27001, for example, which is the information security sort of international standard. If you're in the critical national infrastructure areas, something like the NCSC CAF, cyber assessment framework would be of use. But for small and kind of micro and medium businesses and startups in particular, I've just released a service called Digital Trust Essentials, which is an annual service to help small business owners who haven't got masses of technical knowledge to implement the basics to help them build and maintain customer trust in their organisations.
So that's not a one-off course and do the course, get it certified, and then come back in 12 months' time. That's
no, absolutely not. No, we educate business owners. It's I suppose you would call it a business mentoring service. It's an annual service of monthly advice and guidance based on expertise drawn from the UK National Cybersecurity Centre, the National Institute of Standards and Technology Small Business Centre in the US. We draw on a little bit of good practice from the Australian government's Essential 8 framework, and obviously on the data protection and privacy side, the UK Information Commissioner's Office.
So how do they get hold of that service from you?
Well, we've just set up a Facebook page, actually.
Okay.
I think we established it on the 2nd of September. We've got 5,000 followers at the moment, which we're happy with. Lots of people engaging, and they can see the kind of common sense approach to what we're doing. We have a website as well, or if you Google Digital Trust Essentials, we're number one, I'm happy to say, on Google, and I think we even pop up on the AI responses when you Google things, or indeed get in touch with myself. I'm on LinkedIn, and the website's there, etc. And we'll be reaching out, obviously, on Facebook, LinkedIn. And we also attend sort of small business events and road shows. In fact, I was in one in Rochdale just last week.
You've got a little survey, haven't you, that someone can log into, fill in details about their business, things that they are and aren't doing towards their cybersecurity and their digital trust efforts.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I don't know if it's worth, mentioning a bit of that and inviting people to come along and test it out and see how their business ranks.
Yeah,
on that side.
Yeah, so it's a little free questionnaire is probably the way to put it. I think it's 6 questions in total, and it just asks small business owners in particular, have you got the basics in place? These are the basics according to the emerging sort of digital trust frameworks that are coming out around the world, and the sort of narrative around the shift towards digital trust. So there's half a dozen questions. It literally takes about 3 minutes, I think, to fill in. And it just asks whether they've got multi-factor authentication in place, obviously staff education, training awareness, around data protection and privacy and transparency, etc. Whether they've got a documented incident management plan. That doesn't have to be a massive tome of a document for a small business owner. Just a 2-page, 3-page document. You know, go to Curry's, phone insurance company. You know, it's basic stuff, but it's a bit like your insurance policy, isn't it? When you need a document and you're in a bit of a panic because you've been attacked, just having a little plan on what you would do is there. So there's around about 6 questions around multi-factor authentication on key sort of accounts that you would have with your bank or your social media accounts, your HMRC login, for example, any pensions portals. So it's just, half a dozen questions just saying, have you got the basics in place? And hopefully they have. What we're finding is a lot of small business owners filling in the questionnaire haven't, and they don't know exactly how to enable multi-factor authentication on, let's say, Facebook or LinkedIn or their pensions portal, for example. So we provide a service where we issue guidance, advice and resource to help them do that. Yeah.
It's almost like people don't know or don't know enough about anything to even learn about these kind of things. And you talk about like multi-factor authentication, and especially the big ones like when you're logging into your bank and it's text messages and codes and your face ID. They take a couple of minutes in the way, but you're glad that they're there at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The banks, to be fair, the banks have been really good, across the board, I think, on securing platforms. So you've got your multi-factor authentication. I received a letter from the bank today asking for a signature, and I had to authenticate before I could read the letter. So they're really pushing, the MFA to make sure that it is you who's responding on your business's behalf.
They're quite good on that. That's why I've got a bank account with Monzo, and if you open the bank up while you're on the phone, it'll have a big pop-up saying it's not us calling you. Yeah. Obviously, if I'm on like whoever it is, but if you was getting a call from someone saying they are Monzo and you're going, it will tell you it's not us calling you, they somehow know.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That you're on the phone and it's not them calling. So, banks do make quite a good effort.
Yeah, they do.
It's definitely.
They do. But education, I think, education for everyone, from the CEO down to me, is essential. Yeah. Just to keep them aware of the bad things that are going on out there in the world, how that's changing, because it changes daily, and also just on a personal side, I have children. My daughter got a new mobile phone for Christmas. I just sat with her for 2 or 3 minutes and said, look, all these apps that come preloaded, if you don't use them, delete them. Because they're all asking for access to your photos. They're asking for access to your contact list. Who are these people? Who are these people? Why does somebody I don't know want access to my photos or, my contact details or my email inbox? It's just ridiculous. If we can remove any unwanted software, any unwanted apps off, any unwanted functionality, etc., that just helps remove vulnerability and reduce risk.
That'd be scary. I was just thinking about my phone now. It's about 5 pages of scrolling of apps that I probably never use. And you think, well, what was that?
And some of them don't do anything. They'll sit there until you use them. But we've all sort of seen, haven't we, on our laptops or on our mobiles where a little pop-up appears saying this app wants to access your location, for example, or this app wants to access your photos. Well, actually, I've got photos of my family in my gallery. No. Why? Yeah. It's a bit of a grab, I think, and AI is making that a lot more challenging, I think. What do you trust now on the internet? That's the big challenge.
I think I see it. Anytime anything's posted in the news, every single comment's asking some AI bot or something to verify it. Is this true?
Yeah.
Things like that, or, any kind of picture that gets put on, and even if you can tell it's clearly AI generated, they've got 10 fingers and they're not from somewhere.
Well, I was chatting. I mean, this is just bonkers, really. But I was chatting to some people on a training course recently, and we got into education and exams, and students using AI to write essays, and we were discussing the whole thing about whether it was ethical and the right thing to do and all the rest of it and how easy it is and how quick it is. But then another chap in the room popped his hand up and said, there's actually an AI now that you can use to counteract the AI that you used to produce your dissertation. And what it does is it puts in human error. So we're using AI to generate essays or work to submit for grading. But before we do that, we use another piece of AI to put some human error into the submission before we pop it in. Because the universities are obviously trying to check as much as they can that AI is not being misused.
So they'll put a wrong answer in there somewhere.
Exactly, grammatical errors, that kind of thing that they'll put in just to try and convince the reader of the dissertation or the marker or the examiner that it's been humanly produced, not AI produced. So AI is...
Is that how you pass your exams, Tom?
Oh,
AI is being
hard
used.
studying. I did it the old-fashioned way, hard studying.
Yeah. It is getting to the point. We're all customers, of different organisations, public and private sector. When you receive an email or when you go online, can you trust that organisation or that platform? And it's becoming increasingly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And when you add that to a growing, I suppose, societal lack of trust for whatever reason, what's going on around the world in different countries and different cultures and different generations, it's a huge challenge. Many of the younger generation, I mean, I'm part of the older generation, I think, but many of the younger generation, for example, they do read privacy notices. They are interested in what's happening to their data and who that organisation is passing their data to. And if there's any red flags or signs of distrust on a website, they will walk away.
Yeah, I think I'm probably part of that. If I get a new app or something, you can scroll through rather than just like accept all. I'll scroll through and I'll untick everything. And if there's things that can't be unticked, it's a bit, I just won't use that app.
Yeah.
I know a big one recently, people was like government one that's come out into this verify your age kind of thing, but it's just third party company. And the government are forcing you to do it if you want to use certain apps and things.
Oh, this is the online safety bill.
That's coming through. Because I know a lot of people saying, who's this company? They want the pictures of my ID. They want like pictures of my face, clips of audio and stuff. And it's like, who are these people?
Well, that's it. And even trusted, I put trusted in sort of speech marks, like LinkedIn, for example. LinkedIn are now pushing the LinkedIn Verify. They want to prove you are human, and I can see why they would do that. I can see the benefits of that. So then I kind of thought, right, well, this is probably a good thing to do. So I clicked on it, and it went to a non-LinkedIn third-party company, and they're asking me to take a photo of my passport and send it to them.
I think I had the same ass. I just turned it off.
And then
I think I did exactly the same. I thought, I didn't. It's outside of LinkedIn. This,
and it's outside of LinkedIn. And whilst LinkedIn might trust them, because they've put in a contract.
Do I trust LinkedIn to trust them for me?
Do you provide LinkedIn to trust them or any other company? And if I do give that organisation my passport details, I think they delete them immediately. That's the idea behind it all. But if you give them your passport and they're not keeping that secure, then you're opening yourselves up to identity theft and fraud and all sorts of stuff. In fact, just recently released this week, I think the National Crime Agency have said fraud is the biggest, the biggest issue now from a crime perspective. A lot of that is done digitally. 41%, I think it was. Don't quote me on that, but about 41% or nearly 50%.
Nobody's listening anyway.
Of all crime now is fraud, most of it digitally enabled.
Put a pound value on that, what it's costing the economy.
Huge.
What's it costing small businesses?
Huge, yeah. And the financial impact, I think, is there. We all know it's there. But I don't think anyone's interested. I think it's the human side, which needs to be focused on a lot more. I think that would get up people's attention. If you say to a member of the public, this company's lost £50 million. Well, it's just like, well, okay, I can't imagine what £50 million looks like, So it doesn't mean a great deal. Whereas if you said this small business has failed and as a result, this person's lost their house because they can't pay the mortgage, that puts a human aspect on it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that would change the narrative a little bit. I mean, the big issue a few months ago when all the aircraft were grounded and hospital appointments were cancelled, no doubt that company will get fined, billions and billions by the regulator. So what? How many children were looking forward to going on a 2 weeks holiday and now couldn't? What what value do you put on an upset child, times by X amount of planes that were grounded.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many operations were cancelled that lost an hour or a day or a week or a year of somebody's life? How do you put a value on that? I'm sure some academic somewhere will be able to do that, but that's not reported. But there's a societal impact as well.
Mm.
And that's what's leading, I think, to the erosion of trust and confidence.
Yes, yeah. That's really interesting. I mean, it's interesting and scary in equal measure, I think, and I've learned lots
I've learned
today.
that I'm going to be going on my apps after this and get rid of the ones I don't use.
Well, it is scary, but we always need to remember, I think, there's a flip side to that. So if your business isn't secure, if you haven't got the trust and confidence of your customers, it's not going to be a great journey. But there is a flip side. So if your business is secure and you're open and you're honest and transparent around how you're using people's data and AI and everything else, then all that negativity is reversed and small businesses will flourish.
And this is part of your accreditation, isn't it? If you're doing things well, spread the word and let people know that you're doing things well and join this community of like-minded people and like-minded small businesses.
Absolutely. That. If we can enable a community globally, ideally, but globally of trusted digital businesses who are happy to engage because they know, they all know they're trying to do the best thing they can, then that has to be good. And, if a business gets hit and gets fined, it loses money, people lose their jobs. Well, the flip side of that is if businesses are doing the right thing and they're increasing and building and maintaining trust and confidence of consumers, the business grows, people get employed, everything's rosy in the garden. That's the idea.
I think on that, Steve, a bit of a conclusion then, I guess. Obviously, this is our first client that we've had on our podcast. And I think I kind of wanted to brush up on how James Scott works with you to help the business grow and get it in the position it's in now where you're able to take these kind of next steps, almost like building the foundations. And I think, the importance of how James Scott has helped keep the business compliant, help, monitor the finances year on year, keep up to date with things and help you focus on the other side of it and help develop the business.
Yeah, well, I'm not an accountant. so that's the first thing I'll say. So I trust, dare I say, James Scott to keep me on track and compliant with any legal requirements I have around the financial side of the business. I do get the odd call from yourself, Tom and Brendan, on where I'm at financially in terms of cash in, cash out, which for a small business owner is critical, and a bit of direction and advice on changing laws and regulatory requirements or government requirements, and the responsibilities or accountabilities I have as a small business owner.
Yeah. I think that goes out to obviously all small business owners, like you say, they're not accountants and they have to put the trust into their accountants to keep things right for them. And I think we see it a lot of times where if clients have come to us and things have gone wrong in the past for them, you think, oh, how's this got like this? But it's getting it right the first time and keeping things smooth and steady and transparent, like you say.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Is what helps small businesses to flourish.
Look, I think the financial sector, which James Scott operates in, there's probably two big sectors which the UK government, I think, are interested in. Critical national infrastructure, obviously, that needs to be protected for societal good. Mm-hmm. But the financial services sector will be another sector which absolutely needs to be on point, if you like. If people's bank details or financial details are getting breached and misused wholesale, then that's going to cause serious issues.
Well, like you say, so at James Scott, so as accountants, we hold sensitive client information, don't we? We have got personal data, we've got, potentially dangerous data if we get out there, and obviously we're held to very high standards by the government, by professional bodies.
And me.
By our cybersecurity professionals to keep this data safe and secure. And obviously we have to put those efforts in our work to make sure that we're compliant with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Look, I can tell you now, I had dealings with a financial sector. I think they're financial sector, and it was a mortgage provider. When I moved back to Rochdale a good few years ago now, for one reason or another, getting a house and getting the children in schools was a big priority. We had to do it on short notice just because of circumstance. So I picked a reputable mortgage provider to get this done and how, estate agent and everything else. And of course, they have to do all the checks that you do, to prove that I am who I am, and money laundering issues are not a problem and all the rest of it. So I sent them literally my entire life to get a mortgage approval, 3 years history of housing, children's names, wife's names, bank details, the usual pot of information that you push forward. And then I got, I was keeping an eye on it very, very closely because we had time limits to hit, and I didn't hear from them from about a week. So I phoned them up and said, look, have you got everything you need? I'm trying to get this pushed through. The children start on Monday,
Mm-hmm.
And they said, there's a few questions, Mr. Cockcroft. So we've sent all your information back with some documents and further information that's needed. So I said, okay, I haven't got that email. Bearing in mind, this is my entire life's history, in effect. Everything anyone would need to commit fraud was in that email. And they said, we've sent it to your email address, Mr. Cockcroft, abcd@gef.com. And I said, yeah, that's not me. I'm abcde@gef.co.uk. So first things first, what do you need? Because I have to get in the house. And secondly, did you receive an email bounce notification from the .com address? And they said, no, we didn't. So there's someone with my name with a .com instead of a .co.uk email address who now knows all about me, where I've lived for 3, 5, 7, 8 years. They've got my children's details, date of birth, wife's details, passports, everything they would need to be me, because that organisation did not look after my data.
Wow, that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I give James Scott my data,
.co.uk.
I know it's looked after.
Thank you, Steve. That was really great.
You're welcome.
The Ledger Lounge is brought to you by James Scott Accountants in Oldham, Greater Manchester. Please like, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to the show. To find out how James Scott can help you build a better business, visit jamesscott.com. This podcast is a QPod production. Visit kupod.co.uk for more information.